So, students, all of us are experiencing the most challenging moments of our lifetime, probably. The pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, is actually testing the patience of the mankind. Billions of people across the globe have been locked down. We are experiencing a black swan event that probably the mankind never experienced before. So as we deal with this pandemic, and as all of you graduate during these challenging times, you must be having a lot of anxiety in your mind. You must be having a lot of stress in your mind. You really must be worrying about the uncertain future which might be lying ahead of you. As you graduate during these challenging times, the challenging times which have been posed by coronavirus, the pandemic, how can we navigate through these times? How are you going to navigate through these corona times? I'm going to share some tips with you, and the essence of my talk has a message. The message is leverage corona to navigate through corona times. So use corona to deal with corona times. To deal with the coronavirus crisis, use the power of corona. But the power of corona that I'm going to talk about is different from the virus that is infecting, that is impacting the mankind. This corona that I'm going to talk about are the 6 traits which typically would be symbolized by the abbreviation corona. So let's look at what is this corona, the power of corona that I'm going to talk about. Corona has 6 letters. The first one is C. And the corona traits that I'm going to talk about, the power of corona that I'm going to talk about, the first element of this, the first trait is compassion. That's the first C. As all of us get ready to deal with this crisis, the best way to start is to inculcate the sense of compassion in ourselves. That's the most important thing. And when we talk about compassion, is compassion for whom? My dear students, this is compassion for yourself and for others. Start with compassion for yourself. In the challenging times, when everybody is stressed, everybody is under pressure, you need to show compassion to yourself. And also, you need to show compassion to your friends, to your fellow colleagues, your fellow students, and the fellow countrymen. Compassion is the most important trait that all of us need to demonstrate as we get ready to face the challenging times ahead. I'm reminded of a story, a father and a daughter. They were on a tour of the mountains. The daughter was a little cute girl, about 4 or 5 years old. And as the father and daughter were walking on the mountains, the little girl tripped over a stone. She fell down and she was crying. And she said, "Ah." And students, from somewhere, from the corners of the mountains, there came a voice, and the voice said, "Aha." The little child said, "Who is this?" There came a voice again, and the voice said, "Who is this?" The girl was surprised. She said, "Who are you?" In return, she heard, "Who are you?" She was a bit angry. She said, "Who are you? Come before me." The child was visibly angry and upset. She was looking at her father. The father looked at the child and smiled and said, "My dear child, that's the echo of your voice. But that's not the most important thing, my dear child. The most important thing is something else. Now let's do an experiment." The father told the little daughter, the father said, "Now tell at the top of your voice, I am angry." The child said that, "I am angry." In return, there came a voice which said, "I am angry." The father said, "Now, at the top of your voice, please say, I love you." The child said the same thing. There came back a voice which said, "I love you." The father said, "Now you say at the top of your voice, I care for you." The child did that. And in return, there came a voice, the echo of her voice, which said, "I care for you." The father told the child, "This is the beauty of life. Whatever you give, the same comes back to you. If you give anger, anger comes back to you. If you give cribbing and complaint, the same thing comes back to you. But if you give love, compassion, the same comes back to you." That's the beauty of nature. That's the power of nature as well. In the challenging times, the most important thing that we need is love, caring, and compassion. But how can we get that? We can get that if we give it. So, my dear students, as we get ready for the challenging, difficult times, as we try to navigate through the complexities of uncertainties and volatility and ambiguity, the most important thing that we need to do, the most important trait that we need to demonstrate is compassion. Now let's move to the O of Corona. O stands for openness. In these times, the most important thing that you can do is to be open, be flexible, be adaptable. Don't be rigid. Don't be stringent. If you become rigid, stringent, then you will find it difficult to navigate through the challenging times. Be open and be flexible. Be open to opportunities. Be open to jobs that you get. Don't be rigid that I will only work in Bangalore and I will only work in a company of the size of Infosys or TCS or IBM or an organization like that. No, be open to work for a startup if you get an opportunity there. Be open to relocate. If you get a job in Delhi, Gurgaon, in Hyderabad, in Cochin, be open, be flexible. These are challenging times. These are difficult times. Rigidity is not going to help us. Be flexible. Be like the bamboo tree. Bamboo tree is not the strongest tree. It's not the thickest, but it does not get impacted by a storm because it sways with the wind. In whichever direction the wind blows, it moves in that direction. It never gets uprooted. But there are big, gigantic trees sometimes get uprooted in spite of their strength because they don't sway. They're not flexible. And that's why they get uprooted. You don't have to be the strongest, don't have to be the mightiest, don't have to be the tallest, don't have to be the thickest. But if you are open, flexible, you're open to new ideas, open to new suggestions, open to new opportunities, open to tasks, assignment, jobs that you have never done before, then you are likely to survive and thrive. So that's the important O of the Corona power that we're talking about. Now let's look at the R of the Corona power. R stands for resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back. In challenging times, you will fall down. It's like the tsunami that comes and then that knocks down many things and many people. But people who have got resilience have the ability to stand up even after getting knocked down. So life would mean failure. Life would mean challenging times. Challenging times will knock you down sometimes. But your ability to stand up after getting knocked down, ability to bounce back, is what resilience is all about. In challenging times like this, resilience is very important. Failure is part of life. It may knock us down, but it cannot throw us down. It cannot wipe us out. If you have the resilience, we can bounce back. We can come back. Imagine when we talk about Google as a very, very precious company, a very well-known company, one of the leading IT companies in the world, they have had so many failures. We have only heard about the successes. We know the successes that they have achieved. We know about the great products, but we don't know about the failures. If you talk about Google Plus, if you talk about Picasso, if you talk about several other initiatives, Google launched, but they never did fly. But they are successful today because they went through those failures and they came back. They bounced back. They demonstrated resilience. In challenging times, you will get knocked down several times. You may get laid off. You may not get a job for some time. You may get a job, but you may get fired after a year. All these things may happen. You cannot rule out because we are getting into uncertain times. Times of VUCA. These are VUCA times. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous times. For us to survive, we need to be prepared for failure. We need to be prepared for setbacks. And not just be prepared. We also need to demonstrate the ability to stand up and bounce back. That's important. Now let's look at the second O of Corona Power. Outcomes. O stands for outcomes. Outcomes are important because I think one of my esteemed dignitaries on the dais were talking about creating outcomes, creating impact for the nation building. Our responsibility is not to chase titles, positions, money, wealth. Our objective as citizens, as responsible professionals, is to create outcomes, is to create impact. Create impact for the teams that you work for. Create impacts for the organization that you're working for. Create impacts for your customers, your stakeholders. Create impacts for the society. Create impacts for the country. Create outcomes. If you stay focused on creating impact, creating outcomes, if you're focused on solving problems, creating new solutions, creating new opportunities and experiences for your customers and stakeholders and your fellow citizens, the challenging times will not really bother you for long, because organizations, employers, recruiting supervisors, hiring managers look for people who can create outcomes, who can create impact, who can solve problems. Stay focused on that. Everything else will follow you. Title, position, money would follow you if you are focused on creating outcomes. But if you're focused on jobs, titles, positions, money, etc., and you are not focused on creating outcomes, you will neither create outcomes, you will nor get jobs and titles. That's the universal law. That's the reality of our life. That's the truth that we must realize. Now let's look at the N of this Corona Power that we are talking about. N stands for network. There is another story that I'm reminded of. A father and a son. They were walking on the road. The road was blocked by a gigantic tree. The child said, Papa, can I try and remove this tree so that we can walk on the road? The father said, try, give it a try. The son said, it's a gigantic tree, I'm not sure if I can. The father said, try your best. The child went, tried to lift the big tree. He could not do it. He looked back at his father. The father said, try and use all your strength this time and see if you can lift it or move it from the road. The child tried again. He tried again, but he did not succeed. He said, Papa, I could not move it. I could not remove it from the road. The father said, look, I told you, use all your strength. The child said, Papa, I did. I used all my strength. But the father said, child, you did not use me. You never asked me to come and lend you a helping hand. Am I not your strength? You did not use it. Students, the message that story has is your network is your strength. You can't do it all by yourself. You can't do it all alone. We live in an interdependent, collective world. Use your network. But before that, build your network. Your network is your net worth. This is something which a very famous entrepreneur and writer and management expert, Porter Gale, said very profoundly. Your network is your net worth. So what is your network? How powerful is your network? How well connected you are is not just about having a large network. How engaged are you with them? What kind of relationship that you have with them? Is it that you go back to them only when you need their help? Or you also extend your help to them? Create your network. Network with senior industry professionals. Network with your peers. Network with thought leaders. Network with people who matter. Your network is absolutely important, and network is very, very important in today's challenging times, in today's corona times. Now let's look at the last trait as part of the corona power that we're talking about. That's the A. And the A stands for agility. Be agile, be nimble, be swift, be quick, be sharp. It's always good to be the best, but it really doesn't help if you are the best, but if you do not deliver in the right time, in an agile manner. I think Jack Ma, the famous founder of Alibaba, says something very important. He says, don't try to be the best, but be the first. Be the first one to reach the market. Be the first one to come up with a new idea. Be the first one to learn a new technology. Even if you are not the best in learning that new technology, but if you are the first one to learn that new technology, that is going to benefit you immensely. Be an early mover. Be the first. Demonstrate speed and agility. Be agile. That's important. If you spend all your time in developing a great product, but if a competitor has a similar product or maybe slightly inferior product, but your competitor reaches your customer faster than you do, then you have lost your customer base. Agility in today's world is very important. Agility in the challenging times is very, very important. So friends, as we move on, I would quickly summarize the corona power, the corona traits that you need to deal with corona more effectively. C stands for compassion, O stands for openness, flexibility, R stands for resilience, the ability to bounce back. The second O stands for outcomes, the impact that you create. N stands for the network that you create. A stands for agility. Friends, if you have these 6 traits, this will not only help you navigate through the challenging times, It'll also make you successful. It'll make you thrive.